We at the Dome appreciate you listening. If you're enjoying this podcast, please share, subscribe, and like. Thank you. Good evening, and welcome to News from the Dome. I'm your host, Zip Osborne. Unfortunately, tonight we're not coming to you live from the Dome studios. If you were tuning into our last show, then you know we were suddenly interrupted by armed intruders who broke down the door during the broadcast. The crew and I were able to make a hasty escape. What followed, I can only describe as surreal. Immediately afterward, our very own mayor, Big Bob Dixon, ordered the studio shut down pending the conclusion of an investigation into the break-in. I got back inside to see the state of the studio, and it was terrible. The place had been ransacked, and most of the equipment was smashed. Luckily, I was able to scavenge together enough equipment to keep us on the air. After that, Elka and I visited Sheriff Sam and Deputy Dando to see if we could get an update on the investigation. And darned if the sheriff didn't tell us. They aren't conducting it. It turns out Mayor Dixon has hired a security company to come in and run the investigation. He's also hired them to take over security for the tower and its administration offices. The sheriff and deputy will, however, continue to provide law enforcement for the citizens of the Dome. I don't think I've ever seen Sam in such a foul mood. The mayor, on the other hand, all smiles the past few days. In a statement, the mayor claimed with much confidence that the intruders were in fact a gang of skags and pirates working together to send us all a message, which he says is to stop snooping into the alliance between the two groups. Big Bob went on to say that the skags, who had been reported missing, actually left to join the pirate queen Nadia and her band of outlaws. Elka asked the mayor if he had any proof to back up the allegations, and after insulting her intelligence for asking, and I quote, "such a stupid question," he assured her that the evidence was there, being analyzed, and would be made public soon. So Elka and I started talking about what we should do next. And with things in the Dome so uncertain, and since the broadcasting equipment I salvaged can fit nicely into a backpack, Elka and I decided to take our show on the road. I mean, why not? There's a whole big planet out there to explore, and we're probably just as unsafe outside the Dome as we are inside, if in fact we're in any sort of danger to begin with. And with that, Elka and I packed our equipment, grabbed our hoverboards, and hopped on a hover train destined for the Zorcorp mining facility. Actually, that's where I'm reporting to you right now. So why don't you settle in and I'll tell you about our journey. We checked our luggage and boarded the 8 a.m. train to Zorcorp. Elka and I took our seats and I looked around at my traveling companions. Most of those in our car were tech workers who live in the Dome and make the daily commute to work. A couple, however, were from the dozen or so down-and-out passengers I saw in line earlier. Those who had given up on trying to make it on their own and had signed up to go to work as laborers or miners for Zorcorp. So, being the reporter that she is, Elka went for the interview.
I sat down with Mermit and Teagle, who I immediately recognized as being Marikai. Just like Ingrid from the Stardust, these lovely ladies each had 4 arms. Fun fact, all Marikai are female, and reproduction occurs automatically as part of their development during the first quarter of their lives. It's quite interesting, really, but I digress. Mermit and Teagle have had the same story as many others. They couldn't catch a break in the ore fields. They used the last of their credits and found themselves sharing one room shack in the Skags with 4 other bipeds. Without enough credits to get off planet and go home, they're going to work for Zorcorp, save their earnings, and eventually buy a ticket home. After the interview, I returned to my seat and took in the view of Tarian 347 from the train. At speeds of 800 kilometers per hour, the terrain can look like nothing but an orange blur. But in the distance, one can take in the mountain range known as the Fangs. The mountain's tall, pointy spires give the range its name. Geologists have determined that the floating islands scattered around the planet all originate from this mountain range. They estimate that every few hundred years, peaks break away and take flight. These floating masses continue to rise, and over time are pulled toward the equator, where they eventually leave the planet's atmosphere. There, they break into billions of pieces and eventually fall back to the surface in the form of meteor showers. The very meteor showers our dome protects us from. Cycle of life sort of thing, I suppose. Back to you, Zip.
Elka always gets the best interviews. Well, in no time our journey was over. 2 hours after departure, and we pulled into the station. I was really happy that Elka and I brought our hoverboards. This place is huge. Getting around on foot would have been real time consuming. Even with the boards, it was obvious that investigating the entire operation was going to take more than a day. Elka, of course, always the planner, brought an overnight bag. I don't even have a toothbrush. Our arrival was met with reluctance, to say the least. We weren't allowed to just walk into the place. Instead, we were escorted to a security office where we were questioned for over an hour about the purpose of our visit. We explained that our visit was to learn about the operation, the jobs, and the opportunities available, and then tell our listeners about it. I think I convinced them that our reporting would be good for recruitment. So, finally, after agreeing to some strict guidelines, which I wasn't sure Elka or I would abide by, they allowed us to go and pursue our story. The first thing we both wanted to do was to see the mines, so we hopped on our boards and we were off. Just like the ore fields back home, we found arid islands floating above huge caverns on the surface. Unlike the caverns in the ore fields, these were equipped with elevators that take miners both to the islands above and descend deep into the caverns below. We watched as a giant drill lowered into the cavern. At least 50 miners were seated on or harnessed to the behemoth. And the noise is almost unbearable. Everyone but us were wearing earplugs. A vertical conveyor brings zorodite ore from above and below to the surface. Not every bin was loaded, but those that were turned over into waiting trucks before moving along. Once filled, a truck rolls away and another one takes its place. After the day's work, miners board shuttles that take them back to their barracks, which are long, squat buildings. Elka and I got to peek inside and saw rows of bunks stacked too high, running the length of the barracks. Perhaps 200 workers are packed into one of these buildings. And from where we stood, I saw 10 of these barracks. Each barracks has a large shower facility, and most of the workers rush to get clean before making their way to the dining hall. The state of the men and women here are certainly reminiscent of the workers back at the dome. After a shower, workers made their way to the dining hall. The sun was setting, and colors of red, orange, and purple streaked across the horizon. We decided this was our opportunity to see if the missing skags were here, and if not, perhaps ask some questions about any unusual things going on. So we went in. It was a ruckus crowd. Hundreds of hungry miners scarfing down an endless amount of food. I got to admit, compared to life in the skags, these folks have it good. Good food, a bed, and a hot shower. I see the attraction. Elka and I roamed a bit, looking out for any familiar faces, especially anyone on the missing persons list. But they weren't here. We did find an old fella who goes by Jelly Joe. If you saw his skin, you'd understand why. Well, jelly. Anyway, after a couple pints, old Joe was all talk. I couldn't keep up with all of it. He bounced from subject to subject. Huge ore strikes, the daily death toll, and an illegal casino that some of the managers operate. But there was something he said that caught my attention. Cargo ships that take off weekly for the processing center, usually loaded with only ore, had lately been taking workers too. He was angry. He's certain that there's a new job opportunity which he and the others here are being denied access to. He told me that the workers boarding these ships are coming straight from the train station. Well, that got our attention. It also appeared that we broke one of the guidelines we're supposed to be following. I'm not sure which one. I wasn't really paying attention. Nevertheless, Elka and I were asked to leave the dining hall. We were given sleeping accommodations and led to our rooms. In fact, that's where we are right now. So Elka and I are going to tear down our equipment and get some sleep. Tomorrow, we'll check out the loading facilities and see if we can get a peek at one of these transport ships. So, until next time, good night and good luck.